Kathleen DeLessio on deck at mic 1. Lisa, go ahead.
I'd like to first start off by saying thank you for providing us this opportunity to testify. You should know that my daughter is only a first grader in Stafford Township, and I strongly already oppose PARCC. I've spent countless hours researching Common Core and the assessment tied to it because in 2 years, my daughter will be scheduled to take the PARCC, but I already know we will be refusing. In my testimony, I'll be referencing the third grade PARCC because it's the one closest to my daughter, although I oppose it for all grades. PARCC isn't like any other standardized test. I've taken the practice tests for third grade online, and I can honestly say some of the questions made me feel inferior. These assessments can't possibly measure a third grader's college and career readiness. A test doesn't give students skills to go to college or get a career. Students can be very skilled and never take a test. Our education system has become so test and data-driven that we have lost sight of the fact that kids need to be kids. Another reason I oppose PARCC is that many children do not have access to the technology needed to be comfortable with this test. Districts with a lower socioeconomic status will suffer the most because they'll be less prepared, once again proving exactly what standardized testing has proven all along. I'm aware schools are reviewing the skills needed. In fact, midterms and finals are being canceled in some areas because of it. That sends a clear message to students about how high the stakes of these tests truly are. This can and will lead to undue pressure and angst for children, and I can't stress the word children enough. Florida just announced that some of their schools are canceling recess in order to become PARCC ready. Is that where New Jersey is headed? Schools are becoming more like data-driven prisons than fun and engaged in learning institutions. I thought New Jersey was better than that. New Jersey should lead by example and be a stellar model of how we do what's right for our children and educators, and not what's more profitable for corporations at the expense of our educators and students. I've watched and heard testimonies from parents across the country stating how stressed and anxiety-ridden their children have become over these tests. It's truly heartbreaking, and I don't want to see my daughter go through this. These tests amount to a little over 8 hours of testing in total between the two sessions, and that's for third grade. Why is it necessary to subject our children to 8 hours of tests? Why is it necessary to limit what teachers do best in their classroom and instead have them teach to a test? How do you gauge a teacher's performance based off a standardized test? The job of teaching is never quantifiable. Things like creativity, originality, imagination, and appreciation are impossible to measure, but are certainly important parts of education. A lot of teachers remain silent out of fear, but I'm here to speak out for them as well as our youth. School should be a place where children build their own unique selves by learning social, academic, and life skills, and over-testing is killing this. PARCC consumes classroom time with constant test prep. Students need to keep up regardless of their ability to absorb and learn, just so they can pass a test. It's basically sink or swim. Don't you see how this is harmful? Teachers teach to inspire. There's no need to test for careers because careers come naturally through inspiration. The U.S. started out with 24 states using the PARCC consortia, and if New Jersey is only one of 9 states left using it, doesn't that tell you something? It has recently come to my attention that some of you may be affiliated with the We Raise New Jersey Coalition, an organization formed that is pro-PARCC. It seems that some of you may have already made your decisions regarding PARCC, and I really don't know why you're hearing us today. Is it to just look good or maintain status quo? There is a national outcry over PARCC. It's not just New Jersey, in case you haven't noticed. I don't mind assessments that measure the success of and support of children and teachers, but PARCC is an assessment that's designed to punish and measure the failure of students, educators, and schools. I have with me a petition. I started this petition back in September against PARCC and high-stakes testing. It was presented on January 7th at the State Board meeting by my friend with roughly 4,500 signatures, and since then, in a few weeks, it's doubled in size. I would like to present to you, Mr. Hespe, 9,296 signatures from parents throughout the state, and it's growing every day. We the people have spoken, and it's imperative that you pay attention. I would like to close with a quote from Diane Ravitch. Testing is not a substitute for curriculum and instruction. Good education cannot be achieved by a strategy of testing children, shaming educators, and closing schools. Thank you.
Kathleen DeLessio at Mike 1 and Robert Quinn at Mike 2.
No, that was Lisa Marie.
Thank you.
We have to,
Robert Quinn?
Robert Quinn. So you're gonna go to Mike 2? All right, so Mike 1,
You're Kathleen?
you're Kathleen? Okay, great. So Kathleen, you wanna begin? Then we're up to you, Mike.
Good evening, my name is Kathleen DeLessio from Toms River. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to testify. I have a son in 10th grade at Toms River High School East. I would like to explain the reasons why I oppose Common Core and have refused the high-stakes testing known as PARCC for my son. First of all, it's never been proven that a standardized test was any kind of indicator of a child's individual development or ability. Secondly, I will not allow my son's high school experience to be ruined by him being stressed out and anxious over a test that doesn't count for anything toward his graduation. My son is an honor student who has always excelled at school, both academically, been involved with activities, sports, and is very well-rounded. I have had only positive experience and communications with his teachers over the years and consider them very involved, intelligent, educated, and caring. In other words, I completely trust their abilities to deliver my son a quality education. I have never had a problem with testing. As a matter of fact, I feel our kids should be challenged. That being said, when I first found out about this PARCC test in Common Core, it was at back to school night, when I was told by my son's geometry class that my son's geometry class, that things will be different from this point going forward in education and traditional classroom instruction, and will be reduced to prepare for kids for this online computerized test that will go on for days. She also informed us that all the students will be required to purchase a certain calculator for about $85 to $95 from the PARCC website. That would be necessary for him to take the test. That made me instantly suspicious, and from the last 6 months of endless hours of research on Common Core and PARCC I've done, along with the 10th grade practice ELA assessment I took online, which I found very convoluted, I have grave concerns. And the following reasons are why I refuse. Teachers spend over a third of the school year preparing students to take these tests, including time actually taking the test, pre-test, test prep materials, doing exercises, activities, and online materials that have been modeled to the test questions in order to prepare the students to answer those kind of questions, which I feel is very detrimental to our child's development. Additionally, the time teachers are forced to spend reporting data analysis, data chats, proctoring, and all other data entry to be submitted and uploaded to the for-profit Pearson Corporation that created the testing materials and who, along with outside subcontractors, create and access the test results. I find it intentionally confusing. The results of the tests are not broken down in any way that is diagnostic or for instructional use. Teachers and students cannot even see the test to find out what students got wrong with them and why. So in my opinion, the tests are of no diagnostic or instructional value, none. Not to mention, the results will not be available until late fall 2015 earliest. The standardized tests cannot have any bearing on their final grade or on the student's placement for the following year. I find also the park to be damaging to the students physically and emotionally, from the child actually throwing up to harming themselves as a result of extreme stress. Park is an intentionally much more difficult that will increase students' anxiety and feelings of inadequacy. It is extra frustrating because it is entirely online, creating additional test-taking challenges not related to test content, especially to the youngest students. Park is totally experimental with no international benchmarks or any benchmarks to speak of. And that is evident from the Park website, where you cannot find a mention of international benchmarks. In fact, they have changed their claims 4 times since 2012 to now not a peep. It has never been validated as accurate, and yet it will be used to evaluate students, schools, and teachers. Through my research, I've found standardized test development practice requires that testing instrument be validated. Such validation requires the test maker to show that the test correlated strongly with accepted measures of what is being tested in regard to specific materials and skills being tested. No such validation was done for Park and the Smarter Balance Common Core tests. The only 2 actual experts in math and English language arts on the original Common Core Validation Committee rejected the standards as not rigorous, or even as good as the ones states currently implement. The test failed to meet a minimal standard for high-stakes standardized assessment. I'm concerned about the motivations behind the Park test. Besides the obvious profiteering, it seems to be a sort of psychometric, a type of radical behaviorism, which simply put is a system of punishment and reward to predetermine a predisposition to compliance. By design, it suppresses our kids' natural motivation, undermining creativity and love of learning. Also, all of the incessant test prep for the Park narrows the curriculum and creates a boring learning environment filled with anxiety and fear. In my view, Common Core and these high-stakes assessments are an attempt to socially engineer and seem to be based on a clear agenda of collectivism, one size fits all. From the research I've done, I found Park and Smarter Balance Common Core aligned tests are designed to brand a majority of our children as failures. It's apparent we should be prepared for more than 60% of all children to fail both tests, and that failure is quite intentional and predictable. The Pearson Corporation, as well as a long list of others, stand to profit greatly off the mining and sale of our students' data to a myriad of stakeholders, down to third-party vendors, as well as a huge windfall for technology publishing corporations on testing materials and other Common Core-related products. Parents were left out of the conversation from the beginning and essentially stripped of FERPA protection by an executive order issued by Barack Obama. We have no protection for our children's data. That alone is terrifying. Because of this fact, I have also refused my son to log on to the Chromebook or take part in any questionnaires, surveys, or personal opinion pieces on paper or online. In closing, I am imploring the Study Commission and you, Commissioner Hespy, to insist on the removal of the Park from New Jersey, as the 15 out of 24 states that initially signed on to have. Allow our teachers to take their classrooms back, but at very least, instead of advising districts to implement punitive and disciplinary measures, putting additional pressures on our principals and faculty, please adopt a uniform, humane policy for non-testing students whose parents are exercising their constitutional and parental rights to refuse the Park. Which I believe we all know is an untested, standardized test that, in my opinion, is detrimental and illegitimate. Thank you for your time.